Hey everybody on the Schwann's 27th channel. It's Aaron Allen, the community manager and Reddit proclaimed Mr. Fix-It for Call of Duty World War II, here today to talk to you about the latest patch to our game, since you guys already probably noticed an update, considering that you all play the game every day despite bitching incessantly about it like a fellow neckbeard. That is, unless you play on the PC, because even though there's less certification on Steam than the PlayStation 4 or the VCR, somehow Raven Software couldn't get their shit together in time to make the update schedule. Probably thanks to them chasing trends for working on the Battle Royale mode for the next Call of Duty game, so the PC patch is delayed until next week. But it's still better than next month, which is how long the PC and Xbox One will have to wait for the third DLC pack called United Front, which is released alongside of this patch because Activision and Sony are both spelt with dollar signs. Gosh, that's a crazy coincidence. Before we get to the stuff for everybody, let's talk about the shit that will make us some money hopefully, but only available for one platform at the moment. The United Front DLC features 3 brand new maps, including Stalingrad, which is not just an awesome album by Accept, but is basically London docks covered with snow, and you know this is a trailer because who the fuck still uses the bayonet charge, now that it's not a default attachment, except for people that like to stab things in a shooter game, dumb jerks. The next map is Market Garden, since we're trying to steal the thunder away from our biggest competition, and their trailer that made purists more mad than me when my mom threw away my Pogs collection. Even though this map is based on a historical airborne assault, we decided that it would be better to focus the fighting in a mansion where you can kill shitters, camping with a shotgun on a shitter. How poetic. Between the throwing knives and flamethrowers, dinner's ready. Lastly is Monte Casino, that looks like a crumbled clusterfuck of a generic European city, reusing assets from Aachen because Call of Duty is the greenest game ever made. And it's nice to see some more panic melee in the trailer because we were too dumb to map the melee button to a button that doesn't require you to move your thumb off of the sticks at all. There's also a new war map called Operation Supercharge, and unlike the last DLC that had a map Egypt set in Giza despite the fact that there was no fighting in that part of Egypt during World War II, this one is set in Tunisia during the Battle of El Alamein, or the furthest into Africa that the war pushed, not Egypt as we had previously pushed during our last DLC. Since we want to jump on the Battle Royale bandwagon, we start off by parachuting into the map, then capture some supplies, blow up that annoying ass railway gun, and finally do some more capturing since we ran out of cool ideas for this game mode with the dogfighting last time, and by that I mean airplanes, not Michael Vick. The name of this DLC completely neglects the actual Second United Front that was the name for the Chinese fighters against the Japanese invasion during World War II, which is completely absent from these maps here. Oopsie. There was also a new zombies experience called The Tortured Path that got its own trailer, since we know that people really only buy the DLC for the co-op mode anyways, so we didn't want people to get distracted, like when I walk into a thrift store to gather costume pieces before the next upcoming LARPing event. Welcome to the new transit, this time without the annoyances of moving between the maps with shit jumping on your face and having to wait for a bus. In this first ever 3 maps in 1 DLC offering, collectively called The Tortured Path. We start with Into the Storm, which takes place in Spain under the regime of Francisco Franco, who never really joined the Second World War, but given that Germany and Italy heavily backed the Spanish Civil War on the fascist side that eventually won, it's understandable why the Nazi zombies have migrated into the Iberian Peninsula. This first chapter takes place in a St. Quentin scar from Battlefield 1 cologne that was crossed with St. Marie du Mans, which will be a joy to train zombies in between the closely packed together houses, as well as a group carrying a bomb that makes Fat Man and Little Boy slightly jealous. The next chapter, called Across the Depths, referring to the passage through the Strait of Gibraltar, but instead of reusing that multiplayer map here in what would actually make sense, we decided to go for a map that's even worse with USS Texas. Thankfully, you can actually use the vehicles on top of the ship, even though for some reason the wheels on the truck don't actually spin around when it moves. God, we were lazy with doing those assets. Anyways, you could still use it to get the fuck out to somewhere colder and unrecognizable on the map overlay for the final chapter called Beneath the Ice, where you climb down into Poseidon's asshole to try and decipher his bowel movements. And it's no wonder why he's always so cranky with all these parasites crawling around inside. Here you have to reunite the trident with its rightful place, which sounds like a worse version of a colonoscopy. That is the only time I've ever had somebody touch me in my naughty place. Hashtag forever alone. Anyway, so that all of you Xbox people don't feel left out, let's talk about the changes that came with the actual patch that everyone has access to. Again, except the PC. Sorry guys, we released a brand new Cavalry division, which isn't the same as getting on horses like in another FPS game. And by new, I mean something that's totally been in the game file since launch, but is now finally rolled out to make it seem that we're continuing to support our game, unlike my parents with my D&D club. It's an objective-focused division, which has a ballistic shield as a secondary weapon to start, but you can unlock a division training, which can do a shield charge similar to the Merc bolt charge payload in Infinite Warfare, which fits with our fetish of having melee in a shooter game that was also depicted in our trailers. Another division training is improved objective capabilities like quick planting and defusing in S&D and demolition, quick capturing and domination, and quick building and destroying for the war buildables, along with extra shield and less visibility when carrying the gridiron or flag. The last division training you unlock is points earned from holding hard points and performing war escorts, along with the Modern Warfare 3 Hardline Pro-esque 2 assists or crossfires count as a kill for blitzkrieg purposes, even though giving out XP for holding points and escorting objectives should be default on all classes. But then we wouldn't have anything cool for this formerly dormant division. Oh, and as a reward for prestiging this division, you can unlock the basic variant of the new SMG, the ZK383, which is a built-in select fire capability to increase the fire rate for CQC and slow it down for mid to long range gunfights. However, you could still unlock the rapid fire attachment for the weapon, yet it's not actually equipable. Whoops, I guess we'll have to roll out a hotfix for that later this week. That's a bad copy-paste job, guys, my bad. We're also putting in new basic trainings, which will probably eclipse all 23 of the existing vanilla ones because we don't know how to balance new things we introduce. Even though Michelle and the Hammer had a terrible overall vision for the game, they at least knew how to play rock, paper, scissors. I mean, Glenn would obviously always play rock and then say his fist can smash anything, so it actually wasn't much of a game. Anyways, with the new specialist basic training, which is only available after prestiging the Cavalry division, it doesn't matter that the nearly 24 other perks aren't up to snuff because you can unlock one basic new training at each of 200, 400, and 600 points, and lastly at 800 points, you get all of the basic trainings. This way you don't have to pick your favorites like my Pokemon collection. It's kind of weird having ordnance and requisitions and blitzkrieg and those early unlocks, so choose wisely as you essentially start at a disadvantage anyways on each life without a basic training that actually helps you out. Another new basic training is a Quickscoper's Wet Dream, with escalation that rewards faster aim down sight time after a kill for a short period, and McDoubles will earn you a full magazine to put on the grill. The last new basic training is Wanderlust, which is kind of like your own personal gun game. If you're awkward in social situations like me and can't figure out what gun to bring to the party, as you spawn in with a random gun with up to 6 attachments, as well as having the weapon switch button, bringing up an entire brand new random gun. Speaking of guns, we did some weapon balancing as the Sten M2 carbine and M1A1 carbine all had fire rate buffs because those weapons weren't being used at all compared to similar ones, and the Type 38 sniper had an aim down sight and rechamber time nerf because you shouldn't have to have weapons that are locked behind paywalls be the best in the class. Even though the Attack of the Undead event is over, we're going to keep the infected game mode around and move it to the party games tab, so now there's more than one game mode that AFK contract farmers can ruin, in addition to gun game. Lastly, in update news, it seems that some of you nerdy data miners out there found the camos that we're going to be selling for our e-athletes, which of course we won't give any to the actual teams themselves, and instead save it for increasing our production value on the CWL streams to be slightly better than a public access channel, hence why we put minimal effort into making them, just splattering the team logos on top of generic colored weapons, because that's the type of quality you expect here from Sledgehammer Games.